But yeah, I'm Jo Gordon. I run a parent and toddler organisation called Daniel's Den, and we're based in Northwest London. And as Andy said, I truly believe that toddler groups are the hidden treasure of the nation. And I really believe there should be one within walking distance of every family in the UK. And I think it was nearly 3 years ago when Dave King messaged me and said, "Hey, Joe, I'd like to start a conversation about toddler groups and school readiness." And I remember thinking, oh, hang on, we've got enough to do in toddler groups without thinking about school readiness. But through the course of the conversation, we've worked with some fantastic charities and organisations to produce this wonderful booklet. It's not just a parent and toddler group. And that's what we're launching tonight. And there's been organisations that have done a theory of change. And if you haven't gone on the website, there's a website link to It's Not Just a Parent and Toddler Group with all these resources that you can download for free and share. And we will let you know how you can get a copy of this booklet. There are some in circulation, but it's been a real collaborative work to really put together in a nutshell about the impact of toddler groups on school readiness. And we've involved lots of people, including Dr. Anne Casson, who is on this call. And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what's been your involvement with this booklet? Over to you, Anne.
Thank you, Jo. Well, I'm Dr. Anne Carson. I've just changed roles. I'm now a researcher at Liverpool Cathedral, but a lot of what I'm going to be talking about was when I was doing research at the National Institute for Christian Education, research at Canterbury Christ Church University, where since the pandemic, we conducted a piece of research into church toddler groups, looking at how they enabled the spiritual flourishing of very young children, which fits in really well with this booklet and what church toddler groups are doing. We concluded that we all have an innate spirituality, including the very youngest children. And they're not simply empty vessels waiting to be filled. They are co-agents. We work with them and with their families. So in our research, we were looking at how spiritual flourishing, how toddler groups provide opportunities for young children to better understand themselves, to develop meaningful relationships with others, encounter the natural world, have opportunities for awe and wonder moments, and the potential of developing relationships with the transcendent. And we concluded investing time to connect with and nurture the youngest children's spiritual well-being establishes a secure foundation for later years. So how does this link to school readiness? Well, the research we were conducting highlighted the importance of a smooth transition from toddler group into school setting. And we know research has shown that a poor transition experience has negative consequences long-term for a child's education. We also know that neglecting the opportunities to nurture the youngest child's spirituality can have long-reaching consequences, creating, as Lisa Miller said, a brittle sense of self and a lack of resiliency. So there is clear evidence that we need to pay attention to the spiritual development of young children to get positive outcomes in life. And paying attention to the spiritual well-being of the child and the family in the toddler group has a positive impact on school readiness. In toddler groups, we observed many toddler groups over the course of the 2 years we were doing this. We saw the attention given to the need to be school ready, the provision of opportunities to develop relationships, to have imaginative play, and to provide opportunities to engage with nature and have time for moments of awe and wonder. Consciously giving children space and letting their creativity and independent thinking shine through sets the foundation for them to nurture spiritual well-being, which leads to a smooth transition and readiness for school. Thanks, Jo.
Thank you so much, Anne, for giving those insights. And it's just really good to know that what we're doing in the toddler group is not only contributing to school readiness, but also that spiritual development and stability. And I know that's many of us who run toddler groups, we want to see that flourishing in each of the child's lives and the family's lives. And as we know with our toddler groups, I can see many toddler group leaders here tonight, there is no one size fits all. What we do in our toddler group is often determined by the leader, the team that we have, the facilities or lack of facilities that we have, the toys and the experience that we offer. But each one we know adds to the benefit of children. And one of the things when Dave approached me about this was, I don't want to have another list of things that we have to do as a toddler group leader. Just getting there, setting up, running the group, that's enough. I don't want to feel guilty that I'm not doing enough. I said, what I think we need is something that really affirms what we're already doing. And this booklet is designed to say you're doing a grand job leading your toddler group. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't try to replicate what somebody else is doing down the road. Do what you're doing. But as all toddler group leaders know, there's always things we can learn from others. And that's what I love about the social media channels. When we share ideas, it's like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to use that. And to improve what we have on offer. And I think that's what this booklet is designed for. It's to affirm what you guys are already doing, that when you put out that Play-Doh, it's not just something to squidge with, but it can be a language, it's fine motor skills, it's so much more than just Play-Doh. Now, on the call tonight, we have a toddler group leader who's based in Chester, and she's called Max. Max, would you like to tell us, because you've given some really good input into this booklet, would you like to tell us about your toddler group, where it's based, and some of the changes that you've made and the outcomes of that over the last couple of years, I think it is, or maybe longer?
Yep, no, that's fine, thank you. Yes, my name's Maxine and I run 5 Minus, a toddler group in Crewe in Cheshire, and our group's been running for about 45 years, and in that time it has evolved and changed in many ways, but I think we'd got stuck in a bit of a rut and the format hadn't changed in a long time, and we'd probably got a bit lazy with what we were doing, just putting the same thing out in the same way. And we didn't provide many opportunities at all really in the school readiness areas. We were very, very heavily dependent on ride-ons because we had a big hall, and I think the children got quite bored and would argue and fight and display behaviours that were not positive. Any toys we put out would get broken, and they just wouldn't sit and engage in things we'd do, and people would say, oh, they're naughty children, or you're in the West End of Crewe, that's what's to be expected of those children. And we had parents that would sit on their phones all session and not engage with their children, or other parents, the only engagement was to tell their child off for behaving badly. And again, it was said, oh, they're bad parents. They haven't been parented very well, so they don't know how to parent. It's this generation of parents, they're all about screens, not about interaction. So we totally overhauled what we did, and using many of the school readiness points, we set up areas that were varied and interesting, where children could learn and explore and grow in independence and confidence, and areas that encourage social and emotional development. And it wasn't complicated stuff. Like a play kitchen can become a cafe with a small table and a menu, and putting books in areas that were relevant. So in the farm area, we put books about baby farm animals and about tractors, and books about food in the kitchen area, and just had numbers up around the hall. And if children bring in leaves in autumn, we put them in a tray with magnifying glasses for them to look at. So it wasn't anything very complicated. It was just expanding on stuff. And our children, the same children, just thrived in this school ready environment, and they followed instruction. They knew what was expected of them. We now have a set routine. And they're respectful of toys, they're sharing, and it's just so lovely to see the children be able to interact together, interact with other adults, choose a book or a game to do with someone. Even the baby area now, we've got books and games and toys to start their school readiness journey. But what's really made a difference and just makes our hearts so happy is how much more happy and relaxed our parents are that come in. And they're not on edge watching their child, waiting for them to do something or have a fight or break something, but they're being able to engage with their child because we've provided opportunities for them to do so. And we love seeing a parent be served a plate of plastic beans, or doing a craft with their child, or drink a hot cup of tea, and just watch their child play independently and interact with a new friend, or tidy away their own snack plate. So that's really the difference that this school readiness stuff has made to our group and our parents.
That is fantastic, Max. Thank you so much. And lots of you may have been listening and thinking, oh, well, we already do that, or oh, I've not really thought of it like that. And I think that's the thing about being toddler group leaders. It's about questioning, how can we improve this? And I think I always say within our toddler groups, you're modeling positive parenting and positive talking. And I think that's I think so many parents often become parents and they don't quite know what to do. And if they haven't got a close relationship with family or not got that support network around them, a lot of them are just wanting someone to show or to encourage or to affirm them. Yeah, that's good. And I was chatting to a mum last week who was saying about how a vicar's wife in a church toddler group transformed her parenting journey, because this mum said, you know, me and my husband are very shy, and she hadn't grasped the concept of talking with her baby and her toddler and how children learn language. And she goes, well, what do we say? I don't know what to say. And just this vicar's wife said, just talk about what you're doing. I'm putting on your cardigan. Let's count the buttons. And just all those simple things that to some of us is obvious, but to others, they need that affirmation or modeling. And I think that's where toddler groups are fantastic. In a couple of minutes, we're going to go into some breakout rooms. But before we do that, I thought it would just be interesting to look at the 12 top tips that have been included in this booklet. These were discussed and wrestled with, but these are the 12 top tips. And on every page, there's a wonderful picture. There's an explanation of what it means to develop social skills, and then some examples of what we are doing in our toddler groups. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to get into breakout rooms and explore one or two of these things. And we'd love you to share about it. So these are the 12 things. I'm sure some of you are sitting here thinking you could have added more, but to develop social skills, a sense of routine, a sense of independence, to develop attention and sitting, literacy skills, language skills, those are different, to develop numeracy skills, fine motor skills, growth motor skills, to develop learning through play. Oh my gosh, that's so powerful. And to encourage outdoor play. And lastly, which I think really goes in line with what Anne said, was to develop a sense of awe and wonder. As Max said, bringing in those leaves from outside and having a magnifying glass, what conversations can start just by purely doing that. If we can have, so as we know, we've had that thing called the pandemic several years ago, which had an impact on children. And there was some research done, and it's this quote from a research document from What About the Children report in 2023. Hopefully we can see that in a moment. And this was some research, and there was lots of research done, and the topic of school readiness and about children not being ready for school. I know even this week in the Times there's been articles about teachers having to spend time potty training children, teaching them how just simple basic things that you'd have thought they would have been ready. So this is a hot topic. But in this research in 2023, this is what they found, that over half of early years providers felt that children's personal, social and emotional development had fallen behind because of the pandemic. Almost half of the parents reported a negative impact on their child's social and emotional development. 45% said that COVID had a negative effect on a child's social and emotional development. and 20% felt their child's language and physical development was negatively affected. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Mark Chester, who, Mark, you'll introduce yourself, won't you? Yeah. And he's going to just explore some of the ways in which this booklet can be used.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jo. Yeah, I'm Mark Chester. I am the Parent Support Manager at Care for the Family, and I'm also one of the founders of Who Let the Dads Out. And Who Let the Dads Out is a network of parent and toddler groups, about 160 parent and toddler groups throughout the UK and a few beyond, that have been set up to run specifically for dads, father figures, and their children. And we've contributed to this booklet as well, and I just echo what Jo says. I think it's a really, really valuable resource, and it contains a page in it with some simple ideas of how the contents in the booklet can be used. So we're going to look at those ideas now, and I'm going to go to different people and just ask people to contribute their thoughts. So our first suggestion is a very simple one. It's just to read the booklet and simply bask in the glory of knowing that you're doing a fantastic job. Now, I know that sounds a bit self-congratulatory, but parent and toddler groups are often overlooked and undervalued. So I think we're well within our rights just to take a moment to do that, just to reflect on what a great job we're doing. The second suggestion for how we could use the booklet is to discuss the contents with the members of your team. So I'd like to turn to Heather Pritchard now. And Heather's a children and schools worker and church leader at West Street Christian Fellowship in Crewe. So Heather, how do you think it would impact your team of volunteers if they understood how they're helping children to get ready for school?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, one of the main topics of conversation when we were collaborating on this book that we went to straight away, I think, is the unsung heroes of toddler groups, the volunteers. And we all agreed about how hard these people work, and like Jo has mentioned, the gold and the treasure that they create in every session, and they possibly don't know the impact that they're having. So when we wrote this booklet, there were a number of agencies in our mind as an audience, but it was most definitely written to build up and empower and strengthen volunteers and leaders of these toddler groups. And we recognise that a common phrase that is used in toddler groups up and down the land is, oh, I'm just putting out Play-Doh, or I'm just making a craft, or I'm just providing tea and toast. And so that's why we use that as almost like the reverse for the title. So it's not just a toddler group. And this is because the message that we want the volunteers in our toddler groups to hear is that they're doing such an amazing job. And this booklet will hopefully help prove that to them. And feedback that we've had from parents and carers of these toddler groups often say that, you know, this is the only time that I get a hot cup of tea and a piece of toast made for me. And when volunteers are engaged with the toddlers within a session, I think it's already been mentioned, they're role modelling to parents and demonstrating activities that help children become school ready. And again, they may not be completely aware of the school readiness skills that are being developed during story time or imaginative play or using a pair of scissors, which is why this booklet is such a great tool to help volunteers recognise the incredible work that they're doing and their potential for going forwards. So thanks, Mark.
Brilliant. Thanks, Heather. That's excellent. And now I'd just like to turn to Kate Matthews. She's also at West Street Christian Fellowship in Crewe, and she works for two organisations. She's a coordinator, coach and children's worker for Transforming Lives for Good, a charity called TLG, and she's also a SEND family support worker for a charity called Rubies. So Kate, how could the people here use the booklet with the parents themselves?
Hi, yeah, so I'm really hopeful. I think that the booklet could be a really valuable tools for parents and carers, as well as the volunteers. So I'm hopeful that in two ways, I think. I'm hopeful that parents and carers will look at the booklet and read the booklet and perhaps see themselves on the pages of things that they're already doing, and to kind of be affirmed by that and recognise how important they are in preparing their child for that really big transition, like Joe said, the biggest transition into mainstream education. And then I'm also really hopeful that perhaps they'll look at and read the booklet and be inspired to try something maybe that they've never tried before, to be excited by it, to have fun, to lift the whole family, and again to prepare those children for that transition into education, so that they go on to thrive.
Brilliant, that's great. Thanks, Kate. And another way the booklet could be used is perhaps to help you establish or deepen a relationship with the schools in your area. So you could contact your local school or schools and invite the head teacher to come along to one of the sessions of your group, just to see in practice how just naturally you're helping the children prepare for school. And I think often a good time to do that is in whatever the window is in your local authority for parents to apply for places in school. I think that's often a good time to make contact with a school and invite them to come along. So for instance, where I live, I know that that window is from October to January, but it may be different in other places. And hopefully that'll be tempting to a school to come along, because they can, perhaps if they're having open days, they can come and advertise their open days to the parents in your group. You can talk with them about school readiness, and it may be that then, having established that closer relationship with the school or schools in your area, that then they could help you out with some stuff. Now that might include perhaps supporting any funding applications that you could make as a parent and toddler group. So I'm now going to turn to Catherine Clayton, and Catherine is the partnership engagement lead at the charity Kids Matter. So Catherine, perhaps you could just talk a little bit about how the booklet and its contents could be used in any funding applications that parent and toddler groups want to make.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Yeah, I think the first thing to say is just don't, again, we've kind of said this in other words, but don't underestimate the power of what you're doing when you're applying for funding, because sometimes it can seem quite scary applying for funding, and will they really kind of give me money? But just remember that message that we're getting tonight of what you are doing could change the course of a child's life effectively. So use the knowledge from this book, using the knowledge from the booklet will help you show funders how you could change the trajectory of a young child's life with their money. So just try and remember that as you're thinking about applying for funding. And I think, obviously consider what you're hoping to do, or more of what you would like to do and need the funding for. How will the project that you're thinking about, the resources that you're proposing, meet the needs of getting children school ready? And then when you're looking at the booklet, try and match what you're hoping to do in your toddler group with one of those skills in the booklet, because those skills are about getting kids ready for school. And if you can match exactly what your project is to all the ways that it's going to help children thrive when they get into reception, then that is going to be a much more compelling reason for people to give you money. So just making sure you match the criteria up of what the funders want to the skills in the booklet, to what you're doing. And there's also a document on the Not Just a Parent and Toddler Group website that explains the research that backs up how each tip gets children to school, gets children school ready. So I'd recommend you having a look at that as well, because when you're trying to get funding applications, if you can show how research backs up what you're doing, then that's also really strong reasons for someone to give you money, or a funding body to give you money. Funders like to know what your outcomes will be and will want evidence for it. So again, use a booklet to show what the clear outcomes of the children will be as a result of you receiving that money and implementing the work. And then just be ready, as we all know, to evidence your project in a report, because they will probably ask you for a report once the project is finished, or you've got the resources that you've asked for. Thank you, Mark.
Brilliant. Thanks, Catherine, and thank you to everyone else who contributed there. I hope those suggestions have been helpful to you.